fun එක next level කරන dialogue fan blaster.
First at 9 this Sunday, the 5th of January 2025. The tax pirates. VAT exemption benefits largely retained by traders, not the general public, asserts tax expert. Calls on the need to introduce an anti-profiteering clause into Sri Lanka's VAT legislation. Modification confusion. Remove all unauthorized modifications before the 19th of January, declares the Sri Lanka police. Police unlawfully removing essential accessories, claims the All Island Three-Wheeler Drivers Association. The presidential decree. No foreign visits for government officials unless pre-approved by the president, declares the presidential secretariat. Thriving Triposha. Government decides to continue Triposha as an SOE. Plans underway to rebuild shattered supply chains and further develop the company, reveals the minister.
Chilo Dairy, Sri Lankawama Kiren Perata. Obe Vishwase denu Sensodyne, then Nagamati Pharmacy in Labata Hacker.
Kanta Parisang karagattot? Api Parisang.
Asian Paints Causeway Aquasave Vesat Mattuig Gedarat Disney.
From Derana, this is Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to Derana First at 9. I'm Aditya Adrisinghe joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world. Brought to you by the only Sri Lankan media network to rise to the pinnacle across all media platforms, recognized as the best by every survey and beloved by the people. Now, in your top story tonight, the government has introduced a comprehensive set of guidelines aimed at streamlining and ensuring coordinated communication between state institutions and foreign entities. Through the circular effective from the 1st of January 2025, the government hopes to safeguard national interests and prevent diplomatic complications. Accordingly, going forward, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs will serve as the lead institution for all international relations and has declared compulsory the President's pre-approval for all foreign visits by government officials. The guidelines emphasize strengthening the role of the Minister of Foreign Affairs, ensuring clarity in communication protocols, and establishing a clear framework for international agreements, foreign financing, and diplomatic protocols. At the core of the circular lies the assertion that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs will serve as the lead institution for conducting international relations as outlined in the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations. Going forward, all communication with foreign governments or international organizations must be coordinated with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The circular also establishes clear communication protocols, stressing that no direct communication with foreign governments should occur without the involvement of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Provincial councils and local government authorities are strictly prohibited from engaging with foreign missions, both in Sri Lanka and abroad, without Ministry of Foreign Affairs approval. Ministries such as Finance or Defence may still engage with foreign entities on specific issues such as loans or technical matters, but only after prior consultation with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. In response to the growing complexities of international travel and participation in diplomatic events, the circular introduces new rules for foreign visits. All foreign visits must be pre-approved by the President and coordinated with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to prevent last-minute complications or overlooked diplomatic nuances. Senior officials travelling for official purposes must inform the Ministry of Foreign Affairs well in advance. The ministry will also coordinate visa requests for these officials, which must be submitted at least 4 weeks prior to the departure. Senior officials travelling for official purposes are entitled to transportation and consular support. However, private visits will not be funded by the ministry unless explicitly authorized. The circular also stipulates that costs related to accommodation, travel or communication services are typically borne by the respective ministry organizing the trip. The circular also includes protocols for emergency contacts by foreign missions and informal communications. In the event of an emergency, foreign missions are permitted to contact the relevant ministries directly. However, the Minister of Foreign Affairs must be notified promptly to avoid misunderstandings or potential for diplomatic fallout. Similarly, any informal correspondence with foreign missions must be reported to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, especially if it could evolve into a more significant policy issue. When meeting foreign ministers, dignitaries or ambassadors, representatives from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs should be invited. If not, a report must be submitted to the ministry detailing the discussion that took place during the meeting. The circular further states that senior officials of the government of Sri Lanka should not attend events hosted by representatives of countries with which Sri Lanka does not have diplomatic relations or recognition. In such cases, inquiries can be directed to the Minister of Foreign Affairs for clarification. Before initiating discussions for bilateral, regional or multilateral agreements or memoranda of understanding with foreign entities, ministries must first notify the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Any formal agreements or MOUs must be cleared by the ministry to assess potential policy or legal implications. The circular also outlines participation in diplomatic events. It states that the cabinet will nominate a minister each month to represent Sri Lanka at the National Day celebrations of foreign countries. If the nominated minister is unable to attend, the Minister of Foreign Affairs must be informed at least 2 weeks in advance to make alternative arrangements.
පිරිපුන් ජීවිතයකට ඔබ සමගින් පෙරට Union Assurance.
Welcome to Cinnamon Life, South Asia's biggest entertainment hub, where awe awaits.
චන්දුරුසුමේ කාගෙන් මන අපේ සිංහ TV සඳහා සුපිරි ඩීල්.
Sadaharita Plantations Limited, celebrating 22 years of your trust.
Crunchy goodness for hunger on the go.
Now, the Sri Lanka police declared a 2-week grace period to remove illegal installations of vehicles with a deadline set for the 19th of January. According to the police, strict legal action will be taken against those owners of vehicles who fail to comply with the express instructions of the police. Against this backdrop, public transport associations claim that the police have started to illegally remove essential accessories of public transport vehicles while removing illegal modifications of such vehicles.
As part of the Clean Sri Lanka National Initiative, the police continue to inspect motor vehicles across all police divisions today. Similarly, private buses and vans carrying Sri Pada pilgrims were also subjected to police checkups in front of the Norton Bridge Vimala Surendra Reservoir. A vehicle inspection was launched in Katubedda this morning by the Mount Lavinia police. A bus inspection, meanwhile, was also carried out in Peta today in conjunction with the ongoing Clean Sri Lanka initiative. In addition, the Sri Lanka police have taken steps to implement 2 traffic operations aimed at reducing road accidents and easing traffic congestion in line with the Clean Sri Lanka National Initiative. The first operation targets vehicles with illegal modifications, loud horns and silencers and other equipment that could cause inconvenience to motorists and pedestrians. The second operation features police officers dressed in civil attire deployed particularly to inspect buses for traffic violations. The police assured to press charges against those motorists who violate traffic laws. These operations, implemented as a 2-week pilot project, were initiated yesterday and will continue on until the 19th of January with the objective of raising awareness among motorists and the public. Accordingly, the Sri Lanka police announced that a grace period until the 19th of this month has been granted for vehicle owners to remove any unauthorized parts or modifications installed in their vehicles. The police vowed legal action against those owners who fail to comply with the law. In the meantime, the cleaning of bus stops in the Western Province commenced today as a special project launched under the Clean Sri Lanka initiative. NPP parliamentarian Devananda Suravira also attended the clean-up initiative launched by the government. Under the Clean Sri Lanka initiative, the cleaning of the Kiribati bus stand were also initiated by bus drivers and conductors. Against this backdrop, public transport associations allege that the police have started to illegally remove spare parts of public transport vehicles while removing illegal modifications of such vehicles.
The police think that charging fines from drivers who drive public transport vehicles is part of the Clean Sri Lanka initiative. They have instructed drivers of three-wheelers take off their sun visors. They have also instructed drivers to get rid of other accessories installed on the buffers of three-wheelers. We request the respective officials in charge to refer the special gazette notification which allows nearly 50 modifications which can be lawfully installed on vehicles. We also request three-wheeler drivers to remove all unnecessary modifications attached to their three-wheelers if they intend to take hires.
The Motor Traffic Act does not permit police officers to board buses and press charges against those who violate traffic rules. An app was launched under the Clean Sri Lanka initiative. Through that app, anyone, even someone who harbors some animosity against you, can lodge complaints regarding any vehicle and suggest legal action. All initiatives must be enforced in compliance with the Motor Traffic Act. No one, not even the police or any other official, can act against the Motor Traffic Act. Now, in the meantime, a meeting was held recently at the Ministry of Education, chaired by Prime Minister Dr. Harni Amarasuriya, to discuss the progress of initiatives under the World Bank-supported program directed at modernizing Sri Lankan school education. The meeting focused on the status of projects that are implemented in recent years to benefit school children and educational institutions. During the meeting, the Prime Minister also emphasized the importance of improving hygiene practices and sanitation among school children and enhancing the incorporation of information technology in secondary education curricula.
Fast track your career from O-levels with eSoft.
Diabetol සීනි වලින් පරිස්සම් වන ඔබට අමතක නොවන පෝෂණය.
Prime Group ලංකාවේ ප්‍රථම වතාවට හඳුන්වා දෙන land leasing ලේසියෙන් මීටමක්.
Single 1111 up to 60% off from the 11th November to the 17th of November.
Kalani wire kisi ginnak naha.
කිසි ගින්නක් නෑ. Kalani Fire Shield Wire.
Apico Met Meal සව සමය සැපට නිදියන්න Apico Spring Star Foam Mattress මාදිලි රසකින්.
Crunchy goodness for hunger on the go.
Meanwhile, Dr. Harni Amarasuriya categorically denies any involvement in the cancellation of the scheduled lecture organized by the International Youth and Students for Social Equality at the University of Peradeniya. The lecture, titled How to Fight Against the IMF Austerity Program, was sponsored by the Political Science Students Association of the Department of Political Science at the University of Peradeniya. It was originally scheduled to take place on the 2nd of January, but has since been cancelled. The association students have made allegations suggesting that the Prime Minister and the Minister of Education may have influenced the university's decision to cancel the event. However, in a statement, the Prime Minister's office clarified that no directive or instruction was issued from the office regarding the event. The statement further emphasized the government's commitment to upholding the autonomy of academic institutions. It also stated that the universities must remain places where diverse opinions, including critiques of government policy, can be freely expressed and discussed without fear of suppression. With that, here's a look at some more of the latest political developments during the day.
මදාම මාධ්‍ය ආරක්ෂා කරා මාධ්‍යවේදීන්ට නිදහසේ ස්වාධීනව කටයුතු කරන්න දුන්නා. නමුත් අද රජය විපක්ෂයේ ඉදිකිද්ද මාධ්‍යවේදීන් වෙනුවෙන් පෙනී හිටියා. අද මාධ්‍යවේදීන් මර්ධනය කරන්න කටයුතු කරන අලුත් රජය.
ඒ කියන්නේ එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂයත් එක්ක සාකච්ඡා කරනවද නැවත එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂ සමග එකතු වෙන්නේ?
මම හිතන අපේ පාක්ෂිකයෝ අපේ ආධාරකරු ඉල්ලා සිටනවා. අපි අනාගතයේ එහෙම අවස්ථාවකට එයි කියලා අපි හිතනවා.
බදු අඩු කරන්න විදියක් නැහැ. මේ තියෙන බදු ක්‍රමය ඒ විදිහටම ගෙනියනවා කියලා වරලා රජයේ පැත්තෙන් ප්‍රකාශ කරනවා.
පෞද්ගලික ආණ්ඩුව ගෙනාපු දේවල්ම IMF එකට ඕන විදිහට ආණ්ඩුව අද පාලනය කරනවා. මම හිතන රට පාලනය කරන්නේ ආණ්ඩුව. නෙමෙයි IMF එකේ තියලා අපිට පේන්නේ. ගමේ ඉන්න දුප්පත් මිනිස්සයාට දැන් හාල් ටික නැහැ. 170ට තිබ්බ හාල් 170ට නෙමෙයි යහපාලන ආණ්ඩුවේ තිබ්බේ 80ට. ඒක රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ රාජපක්ෂ ආණ්ඩුව 170 කරා. අනුර කුමාර දිසානායක මහත්මයා ඇවිල්ලා 250 කරලා තියෙනවා. ඒගොල්ලෝ කිව්වේ රට වටේට මුහුද තියෙනවා මාළු ටික අල්ලන්නේ නැහැ කියලා. දැන් රට වටේට මුහුද වතුර තියෙනවා ලුණු ටික හදා ගන්න බැරි ආණ්ඩුවක් දැන් තියෙන්නේ.
දැන් ප්‍රතිපත්ති ප්‍රකාශයේ තියෙන පරිදි වර්තමාන රජය දැන් මාස 3ක් ගත වෙලා වෙච්ච පොරොන්දු කිසිවක් නොතකමින් මේ රටේ පුරවැසියව සූරකමින් තියෙනවා. ඒ වගේම ඔය මේ ෂෝ දාලා කට උත්තර ගන්න ඒවා එළියට එන ඒවා වොයිස් කට් දෙන ඒවා නෙමෙයි මේ දූෂණ වැළැක්වීම කියලා කියන්නේ එතනින් එහා ගිය දෙයක්. ඒ වරදකරුවන්ට දඬුවම් දීලා හිරේ දාපු දවසට තමයි ඔවුන් දීපු පොරොන්දු ඉෂ්ට වෙන්නේ.
පැහැදිලි ලෙස මෙය මාධ්‍ය සංදර්ශනයකට අප ඉඩ තියන්නේ නැහැ. ඒක නිසා මීට පෙර අප දැක්ක හුරු අල්ලනවා කියලා ඒවා මීඩියා ෂෝ විතරයි. ඒක නිසා ඒවෙන් වෙච්ච එකක් නැහැ. හුරු අහු වෙච්ච එකක් නෙවෙයි. ඒවා ඩීල් ගේම් විතරයි. අප පැහැදිලි ලෙස මාධ්‍ය සංදර්ශනයක් නෙමෙයි මේ කරද්දී මොකද ජනවරමට අනුකූලව පැහැදිලි ලෙස නීති අනුකූලව දඬුවම් ලැබෙන විදිය බලන්න පුළුවන්.
ජනමාධ්‍ය අමාත්‍යවරයා හැටියට මම බොහොම පැහැදිලිව කියන්න කැමතියි. කිසිදු ජනමාධ්‍යයකට අත තියන්නේ නැහැ. කිසිදු ජනමාධ්‍යයක නිදහස සීමා කරන්නේ නැහැ. කිසිදු ජනමාධ්‍ය වේදිකේකට අපේ ආණ්ඩුවක් යටතේ අබමල් රොණක හානියක් වෙන්න අපි ඉඩ තියන්නේ නැහැ.
Now in other news, tax consultant Suresh Perera believes that the government should introduce anti-profiteering clauses to ensure that benefits generated through VAT exemptions granted on certain products are properly passed on to the public. Joining our current affairs program at Hyde Park with Indivari Amuatta, Perera, referencing the exemptions provided in 2019, stated that the benefits of these exemptions were largely retained by traders without being passed on to the general public. Meanwhile, tax expert N.R. Gajendran emphasized that the government must introduce antitrust laws without hesitation to eliminate monopolies and oligopolies in the market. This, he argued, would promote competition without the need for price controls.
A major complaint has been about the tax, the commodity prices, as well as price controls then being introduced by the government. How does this really affect not just the market, the people, and the prices being passed down to the people with increased taxes on these commodities?
When government wants to give a relief to the consumers, they bring down the taxes. Good example is the exemption being granted for locally made milk and the locally made yogurt. Now the intention of the government here is that the prices at the marketplace of these two products will go down, but for that purpose only the amendment is being effected to the VAT Act and abolishing the VAT on these two products. But actually, does that happen in practice? In 2019 there was many measures that were taken in relation to the VAT regime. The VAT threshold was increased, the rate was reduced, nearly 500 billion taxes were lost to the government at that time. But did that money actually go down to the consumers? Did the prices of the goods and services come down in 2019? The answer is no. So what happens is, because there's a lacuna in the Sri Lankan VAT Act, we don't have what is called this anti-profiteering clause. The middleman, the trader basically gets that benefit. So we have to have a rule in the VAT Act which is called in common basically as an anti-profiteering clause that will ensure the traders do not keep the margin, that they pass on that VAT benefit to the consumers.
Do you think that the consumers will not benefit as a result?
The human behavior is that traders will try to get that benefit to themselves.
Suresh has a point on anti-profiteering law, but where that law should come is another matter. But before that, these price controls never work because you must allow the market system to work. But in other countries, you have antitrust laws to deal with monopolies, duopolies, or oligopolies. Now, if you see our rice problem is a oligopoly situation. Few people are controlling. Then there has to be a legislation brought to broad-based competition. And you can't bring price control and control, because if you see the rice import price, I am told, with the taxes, the price the traders will have to sell will be definitely more than the control price. So you have to have this anti-monopoly, duopoly law which has to be implemented. Of course, then the government has to have the guts to bring those laws, because these are big players. They can make or break governments.
How will this introduction of VAT on non-residential digital services really impact the services provided to Sri Lankans?
Creating a level playing field between the non-resident digital service providers and the local digital service providers is very important if you want to promote the digital services in Sri Lanka. So right now what is happening is there is no level playing field between the local players and the foreign players. Foreign players are not liable for income tax, they are not liable for social security contribution levy, they are not liable for VAT. Whereas local players are subject to all three taxes. So their pricing is going to go higher than the non-resident one. So there is no level playing field. So apart from the loss of revenue to the state by not taxing the non-resident digital service providers, by not doing things, we are basically killing our own local digital service providers.
Have we wiped out their ability ability to really survive these shocks in the economy?
Some 246,000 SMEs have crashed. If you see, one of the reasons why the larger ones are making more profits, because these SMEs are destroyed, the market share is going towards the larger ones who had the power to withstand all these things. The SMEs with their interest rate reaching 30%, and still there is the Parate law is being debated, and also there was no haircut. And without the entire thing benefiting the banks, SMEs also should have been given relief. You destroy the SMEs, you destroy the country. The SMEs, some of the interest has to be parked for a long-term debt. They can't pay.
Vehicle import will resume with the resumption of imports. Can Sri Lanka really handle the outflow from the reserves?
If you are in an IMF program, you can't have restrictions with regard to the international trade. You know what happens the moment the restrictions are taken out, the dollar is also down. We are going to see people in a hurry bringing down vehicles, and some people will bring down and stock also. This is also an opportunity sometimes for the government to collect more revenue for the state during this interim period, because the moment the restrictions go out, you will see during the first 3 months, 4 5 months, people importing at a rate. I don't know, maybe sometimes it could be a technique to have higher import duties for a period of a shorter duration, let's say for 3 months of kind of a thing, and collect some taxes that are needed for the government. This issue of granting licenses, now that I don't see as a positive idea, though sometimes the thinking behind that may be okay, be able to control the number of vehicles coming into the country kind of a thing, but that leads to corruption.
The Central Bank of Sri Lanka has decided to extend the suspension of Perpetual Treasuries Limited from carrying on business and activities of a primary dealer for a further period of 6 months. The suspension, effective from 4:30 p.m. today, comes as investigations into the company's activities continue under the Registered Stocks and Securities Ordinance and the Local Treasury Bills Ordinance. PTL has been under scrutiny for its alleged involvement in irregularities within the government securities market, prompting the central bank to take measures to safeguard public confidence and market stability. With that, here's a look at more news across the island in brief.
The Department of Wildlife Conservation initiated an operation to use GPS technology in a bid to manage the movement of wild elephants from several areas in Anuradhapura to Wilpattu National Park. The operation, which began in Oyamaduwa, involves fitting GPS collars on wild elephants to track their location and study their migration routes, with the intention of better understanding elephant movements and mitigate the human-elephant conflict. Wildlife officials, local residents and the Sri Lanka Navy are collaborating in this initiative. Meanwhile, the chairman of the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation, DJ Rajakaruna, initiated legal action against trade union leader affiliated with the Samaga Janawala Vegiya, Ananda Palitha, citing defamation. Accordingly, the CPC chairman has reportedly sent a letter of demanding to Ananda Palitha seeking 500 million rupees in compensation, alleging that Palitha caused damage to his reputation through a statement he made. According to reports, the legal notice seeks restitution for the damages caused by what has been described as hateful and baseless accusations. In other local news, 2 persons were arrested by the Police Narcotics Bureau in Sinigama for the possession of 2 grenades, an 8mm pistol, 66 rounds of T56 ammunition and 55 rounds of 9mm ammunition. Police stated that the suspects were arrested based on a tip-off received from the director of the Police Narcotics Bureau.
Welcome back. Now, the government announced that the Tripusha company will continue its operations as a state-owned institution with plans for modification and development. Commenting on the decision, the Minister of Health and Mass Media, Dr. Nalinda Jayatissa, stated that the government aims to implement development plans to strengthen the cooperative relationship between the company and its suppliers in a bid to repair the company's shattered supply chain.
The government announced its decision to continue operating the Tripusha company in Kandana as a state-owned institution with plans for its modification and development. The decision was made during a discussion held yesterday between the Minister of Health and Mass Media, Dr. Nalinda Jayatissa, and relevant officials.
පහුගිය කාලේ අපි දැක්කා පහුගිය ආණ්ඩුව තීන්දුවක් අරගෙනත් තිබුණා ත්‍රිපෝෂ සමාගම ඈවර කරන්නට.
We all witnessed the previous government's decision to liquidate the Triposha company. This company plays a key role in meeting the nutritional requirements of children and pregnant mothers in the country. Since the company operates under the Ministry of Health, both the government and the ministry bear responsibility for its products. Therefore, I believe that we must protect this company and further develop it to ensure its continued operations. To address the country's nutritional challenges, it is essential to maintain the current product quality and preserve a government-managed company that can be held accountable. We expect to implement development plans aimed at organizing farmers and entrepreneurs specializing in maize and soy with the intention of connecting them to the Triposha company. By fostering a cooperative relationship between the company and such suppliers, we must establish a direct supply chain for these essential raw materials. Currently, the production chain has shattered. With the intervention of the Ministry of Health, a formal supply chain must be put in place. We have discussed these matters with the board of directors. The company has now become profitable and we are committed to continuing its work on a permanent basis.
Now in other news on the economic front, according to a spokesperson of the Ministry of Energy, a proposal to form a committee for evaluating the Adani Group's wind energy projects in Sri Lanka is expected to be presented at tomorrow's cabinet meeting. The proposed projects focus on the construction of wind power plants in Mana and Punarine areas. According to the ministry spokesperson, a committee is proposed to be appointed in order to look into legal matters regarding the project and to evaluate the pricing mechanism, which was previously marked as a tariff of 8.26 cents per unit of electricity and purchasing rate of power from the proposed wind power plant. The spokesperson further stated that the committee will take Attorney General's recommendations when evaluating the positions. That's all the news we have for you tonight. For further updates, stay in touch with Ada Derana, Sri Lanka's premium news provider. Thank you. Have a great night.